Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to give it a couple of seconds to let everybody filter in. Just make sure that we're all live and everything is working. Okay, perfect. Right, I think we're all up and running. So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. It's great to see so many of you returning to the call today, so welcome back. It's also great to see a few new names appear in the list as well, so welcome to you guys too. You join us on this rather grey Tuesday morning where we're going to be talking about GA4. As the sunsetting of Universal Analytics has finally come and gone and is now a distant memory, we're going to be talking to you today about optimizing your account post-transition. So hopefully some really useful tips and tricks for you today to take something away with you. Okay, so before we kick off, I just want to start with a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, you can add them to the chat box on the bottom right-hand side of the webinar. What we'll do is we'll do our best to pick up as many of these as we can. Don't worry, your comments can only be seen by us. No question is a silly question, so make sure you speak up. We'll aim to answer all of the questions, but if we do run out of time today, we will come back to you guys afterwards. And obviously, if you think about anything after the webinar, feel free to get in touch with us directly and we'll answer your questions, of course. Also, you'll be excited, there is a little bit of interaction. There is a poll in the webinar that I could ask you guys to get involved in. The poll information is on the bottom right-hand side next to the chat box, which will open up a little bit later. After the webinar today, you'll receive a copy of the recording, so you don't need to worry about taking notes. So sit back and just, like I say, take it all in and don't stress about making sure that you're taking the notes. And there'll be also some content available for download at the end, just to be able to help you take this back to the business. Right, let's get going. So what I want to do is, first of all, look at what we're going to cover today and look into the areas we're going to dig into. So we're going to be looking at how to get the most out of your standard reports. We're going to be looking at or exploring how to build custom charts, funnels, segments, and tree graphs. We're going to be creating customer events and conversions. We will get 5 top tips from Ellie a little bit later towards the end. And before we close today, you'll have your opportunity to grill Ellie in the Q&A at the end. Remember, there is no silly question. And also, you guys can get what you want to get out of it. This is your webinar. So if you've got any questions and you want to know the answers, throw them in the chat box and we'll get them out to Ellie at the end. So before we get going, I just want to again say thank you all for joining today. Quick reminder, the polls are down in the bottom right-hand side. I'm going to get the first poll opened and I just want to know, how has it been for you getting through that transition of GA4? How have you guys found it? How has the process been? And sort of how are you sitting at the moment? I can see a few of the answers coming in. So there are a few people in there that are sort of saying that they need a little bit more help. That's not a problem. I hope some of this information today will be able to shed a bit of light on that for you. And also we can touch base with you guys afterwards if you've got any specific questions with your setups. And also there's a lot of people still finding it fairly difficult. Again, quite interesting to see. And again, hopefully we'll shed a little bit of light for you guys as we go through this today. So you've all now made the jump. You'll now be looking at standard reports in GA4 and what that has to offer. If, like me, you want to know how to get the most of this standard setup, let's kick it off a little bit by welcoming Ellie again. Can you kick us off by tackling this one for us? How can you get the most out of standard reports?
So firstly, it's very good to look at the basics, look at the differences in terminology, what's being reported differently, some of the key traffic metrics, so users, page views, sessions, bounce rate, of course, conversions.
So you mentioned that there's a difference in terminology. So let's start by telling us about users.
Yeah, so first off, total users and new users, not much has changed. It's all based on event data. However, we have seen the introduction of a new metric called active users, which didn't exist in Universal Analytics. So these are users who have had an engaged session, which I'll talk about more later. And these are triggered by specific events, such as a first visit or a first open, for example.
It's interesting to hear that more about engaged sessions by active users for sure. So what does that then look like when we look at page views?
So in terms of page views, we need to remember that we now can include our app traffic, if that's applicable. So that's something that's new. Unique page views have gone away as a standard metric. However, there is a workaround for this by creating a custom event to capture unique page views using a tag manager. So we need some basic coding skills for this. Overall, we'd advise that you switch the way you think about the data rather than getting GA4 to fit what you've always done.
So that's really great news that we've got these custom, we can create custom events to capture unique page views from Tag Master. Manager. Can't put my teeth in this morning. So how have the sessions changed?
So sessions in both Universal and GA4 are counted up until there's a 30-minute period of time of inactivity. However, in Universal, there were other ways for them to end. In GA4, it's simplified to just that 30-minute window of inactivity. So what's really different is the way data is gathered, which we went through in our previous webinar, actually. So if you want to find out more, you can have a look back at that. But basically, GA4 sessions start once the start session event is triggered and the session ID is then being generated.
And it's great to see some of these things are starting to be a little bit easier for us as we go forward. So if we were to look at bounce rates, again, I know this is quite a hot topic. What do they look like in GA4?
So GA4 is focused on engagement and activity. And when we think about it, bounce rate's the opposite of that. So it's looking at the inactivity of a page. So it doesn't really make sense in the world of GA4 to measure this. Instead, they're focusing on engaged sessions versus non-engaged sessions. In EUA, a percentage of single page sessions in which there are no interaction with the page, and then in GA4 is a percentage of sessions that weren't engaged sessions. So on the face of things, it's the same metric. This is where things get a bit different. It's not as obvious where to find it. And because GA4 looks at data in a slightly different way with the engaged sessions, then it's all new. But you can calculate it on your own, actually, and you can set up your own reports if you're really attached to bounce rate, which some people are. So the basic calculation is looking at all sessions minus engaged sessions. You take that total number of these non-engaged sessions and divide it by all sessions to get that percentage, just as a basic, and you can set up a report to include that.
Cool. So we all love maths, don't we? So we can see that there's an evolution in the way that we look at bounce rate, and it's driven far more around engagement, which is a huge mindset change for a lot of us. What changes have come to GA4 when it comes to conversions?
So the main difference here is that Universal Analytics counts only one conversion per session for the same goal. GA4 looks at counting multiple conversions during that session for the same conversion event. There are ways in which you can turn this off, so you can reduce the number of conversion count differences between the two properties, and you can update your GA4 conversion counting method to set for once per session. You might miss out on a bit of data by doing that, though, if someone converts twice within a 30-minute period.
So multiple conversions are being tracked against one event. So hopefully this will allow us to learn more about the customer journey by being able to understand this a little bit more. When we look at GA4, I can see that it does seem to have many, or doesn't seem to have many reports, or ones that I'm used to seeing are different. It's difficult to pick which ones are going to be most useful. I throw it to you. What do you think your top 3 reports are that you've managed to find and set up?
Yeah, so you will find a lot fewer reports in GA4 than what you're used to. And initially, it does feel like you've been hard done by, but it's all by design. So GA4's Explore section is where you can make these custom reports. And the idea from GA4 is that you're meant to customize your reports and adapt it to your business rather than using the preset reports, which used to kind of fit together in a clunky way, like in Universal. So rather than going into every single report type, we'd be here all day. We thought we'd just arm you with a few key standard reports and then move on to creating the custom reports, which is what GA4 is really encouraging you to do. So first up, we have the natural language search bar. So it's not strictly a report, but for me, it's by far one of the most useful and best features of GA4. For example, if you're struggling to find what you need, you just need to type it into GA4, type it into the search box, and it will throw up a report for you. It's as simple as that.
I know it sounds really obvious, but obviously search function shouldn't be that difficult to use. So you're saying that if I use this, this is going to make me look much better on GA4.
It is hoping. It certainly helps you find some answers quickly if you put on the spot.
Cool.
So next up, we've got the acquisition overview. So from the main overview screen, you can access preset reports on traffic acquisition channels, as well as new users, organic traffic, etc. And that covers the basics that you've probably been used to tracking in Universal. These reports cover users, sessions, and engaged sessions. There's also the new engagement rate, which is calculated using the other engagement metrics that they've included. And it's a lot, that's the more positive cousin of the bounce rate, as previously mentioned. So rather than focusing on how many users you've lost, you now look at how many engaged sessions you've gained. You can also find the conversion and revenue within there, and the channels are grouped by default, but you can easily add additional filters and secondary filters to that.
So it's kind of like what we said, isn't it? It's a mindset shift over to how we look at these sessions. It's becoming more about consumer engagement rather than coming to a page and bouncing. So hopefully this will give us a much more stronger understanding of consumer habits over time. So we can obviously engage with our customers, our consumers much better than we have previously.
Yeah, and then finally we've got the landing page reports. So these are very similar to the Universal. So from the standing landing pages report in GA4, you'll be able to see things like top pages people have viewed, where the traffic came from, engagement metrics again, conversions and revenue metrics too, if that's applicable. It's really useful no matter what channel you're trying to view, or if it's an overall view of how everything's doing as a whole.
It's invaluable, isn't it, to be able to understand how your website operates and where those best performing parts are, where the traffic's coming from, and what channels need improvement, and obviously where your strongest channels are. So again, it could become quite valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I love the landing page report from a paid search perspective. I want to see what's working well, what isn't working well, and again, if you're doing any sort of organic activity, that's where you would look.
Yeah, it's cool. Okay, so we've seen the standard reports that are available to us, but I feel it's really, really clear that GA4 isn't out the box set up for everybody, and it's becoming very apparent that we need to build our own custom reports. So could you talk us through a little bit of that, about how to build reports of Explore?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I will say at this point is that they are bringing out new features all the time. So even since we started putting this deck together, they've released new features. Obviously, the rollout happened last week, 2 weeks ago now. And actually some of the Universal profiles were still live when they said they were turning them off. So there's quite a lot going on in the background. But when it comes to building out reports in Explore, where Universal had dashboards, GA4 now has explorations, and these are far more advanced and flexible than the dashboards. So investing time setting them up is well worth it, in our opinion. And you can either start from scratch, you can use a blank exploration, or you can use a preset one as well. So free-form explorations. So it requires a bit of tinkering around to work out how to create what you need to. They're essentially custom charts and tables, and much like Universal, though, it uses dimensions and metrics. It also segments them out if you need them to. You simply add and then scroll and find what you want to search for at the top. And you choose your visualization. I can never say that word. So chart, graph, table, add the number of rows, add the number of columns you want to see. And this is even where you would create your bounce rate report, for example.
You know, it's quite refreshing, because again, it can sound quite scary and it's quite difficult when you come to something new, but it doesn't sound as difficult to get this set up, to be fair. And it does make a huge amount more sense sometimes spending that little bit longer building the report from scratch. Yeah, because equally you get it teed up for what you want.
Yeah, I think the way in which they've displayed it looks quite intimidating, because it's lots of boxes and lots of options. But if you kind of pre-plan what you want to find, it is quite simple once you get into the flow of things.
Cool.
So next up, we've got funnel explorations. So these help you to map out user journeys, so you can analyze, segment, and break down the data with multi-step funnels. They help you to visualize the steps users take to complete tasks. So, for example, a conversion events on your site or app, and you can see how you could then optimize for the user experience to identify over and underperforming audiences. For funnel exploration, you can use the template for this. You can get started and delete or add dimensions as you need. So it's a bit more user-friendly.
again, I've had a couple, I've said this a couple of times now, it's about getting into the world of better understanding consumer habits and the journey.
Yeah.
And if we've got this data to hand, it becomes invaluable to make sure that we're creating the perfect customer journey.
Yeah.
So again, it's good to hear.
And then finally, the path explorations. So these help you to visualize the paths your user takes as they interact with your website or app. These tree graphs can help you uncover user journeys. So you can use these tree graphs to do that. So for example, you can find top pages that new users open after opening the home page, uncover loop behavior where it might indicate if someone's stuck. Determine the effects of an event on a subsequent user's actions. So it might sound similar to the funnel analysis, but ultimately the two go hand in hand. And the main benefit I see from this report is identifying where visitors might be failing, and you can make informed decisions to rectify or adapt your site or app to support their journey.
Again, it's getting this level of detail quickly allows you to make a really informed decision on your website. And again, having that better understanding of the consumer's needs gets you that better information to be able to refine what you're doing, which is really, really cool. Okay, so with that in mind, with the pre-launch frustration of change and losing system that we have all known and loved for so long, it is good to see that there's some really good tools coming in GA4, which is giving us far more rich data to be able to deploy. And again, like I say, it comes down to what you put in, you get out. So it is important to make sure we're getting into that. So I want to now move on to talking about creating custom events and conversions. So can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so being able to create events directly in the interface wasn't possible in Universal. So this is an exciting development, and it's far simpler than doing it in Google Tag Manager, for example. I was recently asked as a paid search marketer why I wanted things like newsletter signups adding as a conversion event, and ultimately we want to track things that are important to client acquisition and engagement metrics to the business as a whole. Not just at the bottom end of the funnel, but throughout the user journey. So if you can imagine you're running broad keyword campaign in Google Ads, and someone who's never heard of you comes to your website, has a look around, signs up to the newsletter so they can learn more about you, and then they leave the site. Without tracking that interaction, we would have seen that click and that user visit as a fail if they didn't buy or fill out a form there and then. So it's worth doing. So how do you go about creating these custom events? So you've got the ability to create events that track user interactions with your site and align with your specific business objectives. And because GA4 is event-based, every single interaction is an event. So in theory, any of them can be turned into a conversion. And these used to be called goals in Universal. But before you create or modify an event, make sure that that event name, a custom event, is not reserved, it's not already used, and you can create up to 50 events. You can navigate to the admin area and select those events, and from there you can configure it. So yeah.
There is a lot of events that you mentioned on that slide, and I'm sure there's probably a drinking game in there somewhere. However, again, we know that there's a huge focus on events in GA4, and it's really nice to see that we've got this flexibility to really tailor the fit down to what we need and be able to gain that valuable insight for the customer journey. And I know I keep saying it, but again, it gives us that much more visibility for what our end consumers are using.
Yeah. So how do we then mark these events as conversions? So GA4 only automatically marks 5 events as conversions, so you'll need to set up your own. So for a website and app, purchase is the one that automatically gets set up. However, within apps, you can also get first open, in-app purchase, app store subscription, and renewal as well. So with everything else that you might want to track, you can set up a conversion in the admin area. You can mark up to 30 events as conversions, which is a lot. But you can get more specific than that and set up conversions only to count based on certain criteria being met, for example. So if you're a blog and you want people to read an article for a certain amount of time, you could set that up as an event. So equally, you might want to have some events marked as conversions that are already set up that way. You simply toggle the events as marked as conversion, and it should all be done in the admin section.
So do you think, again, we're seeing a lot of this GA4 frustration early on, and a lot of difficulty comes with it, but I think it's because the package isn't set up for a business where previously it might have been forced upon us for different reports, etc. So it's nice now to kind of understand that GA4 is not the end product when you get it. So you've got to really focus on being able to build that out for your business needs.
Yeah.
And obviously make sure that we're building those sets up to be able to get the data that you need as an organization, as opposed to what's generic across the industry.
Exactly. It's definitely the out-the-box solution of universal compared to the bespoke GA4, but you have to build it yourself.
Yeah, understand.
Like specialist.
So it's trying to make a bit of time into that. So again, it's putting that time in will effectively pay dividend later on down the line.
So the events reports, this is where you see how those events are performing. It shows accounts of how many times each of your tracked events are triggered on your website or app, and you can combine them together. You analyze the events so you can make improvements, essentially, see how they're performing, looking at the user experience, and obviously you want to increase those conversions as a business. So yeah, that's all kind of set up for you. This event report, so it's one to keep an eye on.
So again, it's nice and simple, but gives you some really strong information, so it's good to see that as well.
So the conversions report, again, it's quite an obvious one, but firstly you'll need to have all those events that you want marking as conversions marked as conversions in the admin area to show what you need. The conversions report essentially shows you which conversion actions are most common, how many users performed each action, the revenue associated, again, if that's applicable.
So again, thank you, Ellie. Some really good bits of information and something that we can all take away here and try and set off ourselves. Do you know what? It's really, really difficult when you're talking about a subject that's got so much diversity, and it's something that we would like to be able to sit down individually and look at the business needs. But again, it's nice to sort of put some parts of that in a nutshell to hopefully benefit most people here.
Yeah, one thing I will note is that when you are setting up events or conversions, I would make sure that you test it using the real-time reports, see if any of the data is being captured correctly when setting up events. We did this recently for a client of ours where myself and the team literally filled out every form on the website numerous times to ensure that we're tracking everything okay. It's a necessary evil, but well worth it to make sure that we're tracking everything properly.
Okay, so thank you for rounding up some great advice for GA4 reports. Again, like I say, it's a bit of a minefield when it comes to it, and it is very like the system, it's bespoke when we start looking at setting those reports up. So again, please, if you're struggling with anything, give us a shout as well. We're more than happy to help advise or help you with the setups. Okay, so Ellie, quick fire time. What are your top 5 tips for making the most out of the reporting features we've covered today?
So tip number 1, embrace engagement metrics. Try and think more positively. So rather than looking at the lack of engagement, such as the bounce rate, focus on the positive. So making that switch in your brain might be quite tricky, but definitely worthwhile overall. Tip number 2, get your head around events and the benefits of an event-based system. Use the natural language search to your advantage to get those quick answers and get top line numbers. It's such a time saver. So if you want to find things like how much revenue have I made this month, you can ask that search bar. You don't have to look at any reports. Great. Number 4, set up custom reports and more detailed reports, especially ones that you use regularly. If you're continuously finding and digging for the same information, create a custom report. It'll save you time. And then setting up those events and conversions that fit your business objectives. Like Dan said, it's really hard to do a session where we've got people that are tuned in that are e-com and some that are definitely not. So it's about finding that balance, but it's what's right for your business. There's no right or wrong answer for everybody. And this is a really great time for you to think about what's important, what's worth recording, how does your business operate, and how can you, as a marketing function or a business owner, adapt to that. So yeah, measure.
Okay, so we've made it, everybody. Now I have a few. I can see that there's a few questions that have come in, so I'm going to try and grab a couple of those. I know that we've run a little bit over on the time, so we won't have a huge amount of time to answer all of the questions. We will circle back to everybody that's put the questions in the box that we don't get to. So I've got a couple of bits that I'm going to throw out to Ellie. So first question. I work within an e-commerce team. We feel like we're sending more data to GA4 than we did before, but getting less reports out of it. Is this normal, or have we perhaps set things up incorrectly?
So I'd like to think it's set up correctly. It's probably set up correctly. However, when it comes to GA4, they've introduced things such as enhanced e-commerce, and despite us giving them more data, we're not seeing that data in GA4, which is great. So it probably is set up correctly. Yeah, I think it's a case of having to set up your own customer reports. It's going to keep coming back to this, but if there's a way in which, if the information and the data is captured, you should then be able to build it out within a custom report. Yeah, that's what I'd say about that one. Most likely a case of having to build out a custom report. It's not built into the system.
Cool. Okay. And I suppose with the new approach to events, I missed the category action event grouping drill downs that we used to use. Is there a way of getting this back?
Frustratingly, no. Google have pulled some of these features. So ones such as if you wanted to find out how many voucher codes and things like that as an e-com, there used to be lovely features like that. We were able to see a lot more information in terms of who's using the site in certain ways, and some of the data and that category area. Categories you can pull into a custom report, definitely, because I've had to do that quite a few times. And yeah, the grouping and drill down, again, it's something that you're just going to have to build out yourself, which is really annoying. One thing I will note is that some of the parameter names have changed. So we have things in Looker Studio, for example, we set up a few reports, and some of their IDs have changed. So something that was classed as a product ID is now an item ID. So it might be that you can't find it because the name's changed, which again, it's not very helpful, but that's unfortunately how they do things. So you just have to adapt, have a hunt around, and hopefully you'll be able to get some of the information that you miss within the system.
Cool. Okay, so I think, to be fair, that's what we've got time for the questions today. There are a couple more, but we will come directly to you guys afterwards, just to make that a little bit easier. And they're also a little bit more complex in terms of specific for business needs. Again, like I say, if you've got questions later, please feel free to reach out. We'll come back to you with a direct answer specifically for you. So finally, a huge thank you for your time today, Ellie. I really appreciate you joining me and being able to allow us to pick your brain a little bit and sort of uncover a bit more. A couple of reminders. We'll be sending out our copy of the recording of the webinar to be able to use with yourself or with the team later. You'll also see that Helen has kindly posted a checklist that you can all download now to help you with any of this and sort of integrate this when you go back to the business for the things we've talked about today. Our next webinar is going to be on the 26th of September at the same time as today, and we will cover how to stop wasting ad spend and maximize your ROI. So again, a really big subject at the moment is making sure that people are absolutely capitalizing on their spend and not wasting money. You are all welcome to sign up for this and bring your teams along to make sure that you're getting the most out of this. So let's get the word out there to make sure you guys are all getting that assistance. Finally, if you're wondering who we are Team Evo Agency. We've been doing this for 15 years. 15 years this month, I will say. So again, very, very exciting time for us as a brand. I'm going to leave it there, guys, but can't wait to see you on the next one. Thank you again for all of your time today, and we can't wait to see you for when we do the next webinar. So again, from me, thank you very much and goodbye.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Guys, we'll see you on the next webinar.